You're listening to another episode of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, did you survive yesterday, Victoria, in 110-degree heat?
Goodness.
Yeah, I know.
It was toasty yesterday.
Yes, it was.
And we were outside pretty much all day long.
And so were we. Robin and I were helping our daughter move furniture, and it's like, good night. I haven't sweat like this since I was a kid. Anyway, we're going to talk about several things with the city with Councilmember Victoria Johnson. We're going to talk about Juneteenth last night.
Yeah.
And here went great.
It was so fun.
And good turnout.
Good turnout.
And also, we're going to talk about some of the issues that the state of Texas is impacting on Burleson.
Gosh, they like to come encroaching on our stuff, don't they?
Yes, they do. And it's completely different from the typical, or at least stated, Republican philosophy of local control, and conservative control, blah, blah, blah. But we'll get into that. And just what else is on our minds today. If you have questions, you know where to put them on the screen.
We'll be watching.
And be nice. And so it was one of the things I was going to ask you about as well, is about some of the couple of people talked to me about, is there a lot of turnover to city staff? And I know you can't address that fully because we are talking about personnel, but maybe in very broad terms, you can mention it.
Sure.
And so we can talk about those things. But anyway, let's talk about the sponsors so we can get right to it. Have you met the new owners of CrossFit Burleson?
I haven't.
Daniel sold it to a couple of young ladies, a girl named Lexi, or not girl, or women. I'm just old man. I keep doing that. A woman named Lexi and a woman named Bailey. And they were on the show about 2 weeks ago today. And it's really interesting because they got some plans for it to expand a couple of programs. But a lot of the main programs are still there, the classes and whatnot. So check out the website and find out what's going on with CrossFitBurleson.com. It's a very interesting show because they want to bring bodybuilding and all this other stuff into the mix, and so it'll be fun. Also, Shandy, she's the one. We already seen that one, Taylor. Let's go into Shandy. There you go, Shandy's. No. Shandy's Dog Deal. She's doing my daughter's move, and they're closing Friday. Thank God. You've been through a house closing. It's an ordeal.
It's very helpful to be with somebody that you trust and who's knowledgeable.
Exactly.
Because I swear those contracts that you sign, I don't know if you're giving away your firstborn, your kidney,
Yeah, right. I've gone through 2 or 3 closings for refinance and whatnot, and it's like, you better, make sure you're right in hands and shape because you're going to be signing and initialing all day long. She was going to be on next Tuesday, but she actually is going to be at a real estate event next Tuesday. So her associate, Mindy, will be here for that. We're going to talk about real estate. Also, of course, Otto, I'll be seeing him Friday or Thursday morning. Well, I won't be seeing him. He'll be in the sack. I know he gets there about 10. I'll see his son Ryan, and I'll see Lana there at our place early on Thursday morning. If I'm not there once a week, Otto calls and said, hey, are you ill? Is something falling on top of you? Because I'm there a lot.
Oh, no, we are too. My kids love our place.
Well, for the pie and all that business?
Well, no, Audrey's obsessed with the Minnie Mouse pancake that comes with sprinkles and whipped cream.
Brother.
But we do make her get a side of sausage, so she has some protein.
And protein,
She has to have protein, all that sugar. And then Oliver is obsessed with multiple items on the menu.
Yeah.
So I like it because, if we go, we can have breakfast or lunch or, But you know what I've recently become obsessed with is his soups because they are completely from scratch. And I think it's on Fridays, the vegetarian soup or vegetable soup. Oh my, it knocks my socks off.
Well, I like this taco soup they have.
Ooh.
It's, it's some cheese and all that, and it's really, really good. And
of course, the honey butter.
Of course.
It's the only place I sadly gorge on butter.
Well, and also we have Chris over at Wild Cigar and Culture. I'll be dropping by there probably sometime this week also. I'd like to do a little sponsor care, as they call it, to see how he's doing.
Sure.
But he's doing pretty well.
Philip's having a guys' night there soon, and he's not a cigars person, but he likes to just, it's the loungy, it's the atmosphere. Yeah.
Well, they have a really nice bar with some decent stuff.
It's so well done. It's so elegant in there.
They don't have they have some of the top shelf stuff there and whatnot. So it's a good place to go. And I've gone over there, and I will have a cigar maybe with my son, but
Sure.
I go over there for other things, just for maybe a drink and visit.
Yeah.
And I can actually hear myself
You
think.
can hear yourself. I know. It's hard to go places and actually have a conversation.
I know. Also, thank you to Tiffany. She's doing pretty well over at the Local Life. And, if you're looking to advertise this summer, it's a great place to do it. She's really busy this summer.
That's awesome.
I'm trying to get her on the show. She said, I'm not going to be able to see you until probably after Labor Day because
they have the July 4th party at the pavilion.
Right.
And I've seen, we all voted on shirt designs for that. I can't wait to see them in action. And it has a huge turnout and lots of big things happening in her world. So,
well, and that and 2 daughters that she wants to spend time with.
Yeah.
And her daughter's back from college, the older one. And so anyway, if you're looking to advertise, you need to check her out because she goes to 30,000 homes directly. Also, Gala, Southern Gym, they're moving right now this week, which is picked a hot time to do it. But they'll probably fully open within about 10 days. But they're moving all the furniture stuff and all that. But they're still open upstairs for the time being. Robin's been telling her they're just, when they have a spare moment, they'll take a couple of boxes downstairs and that kind of thing. And it's very, very nice. The decor is similar to what you're used to seeing in the 3rd floor, but it's just more expansive.
Sure.
And next time
it's going to be so nice downstairs.
Yes, and you take Philip to it, and you can park him in the bullpen because there's going to be a TV and Dr. Pepper or beer or whatever. So
I hope Dr. Pepper, you're speaking his language.
Yeah, so while he's watching whatever sports,
I can make my laundry list of all the things I'd like for birthday. My 10th anniversary is in January.
Well, so you got it all figured out.
Got it all figured out. I told him I want another band, so he needs to get to work on it.
Good heavens. Also, thank you to Old Pro Roofing. John Williams came out to my house on Friday and said my roof is in good shape, and which surprised me.
Good.
Well, it's nice.
Man, was that an experience? I don't think I've ever actually seen baseball size in person.
Well, for where we were, it was about ping pong ball. But I had several people showing me pictures on their phone or on Facebook. The size of baseballs are better. And John said the west side of Burleson got hammered. Where I was at on the east side, there was some damage. My car has a few divots in it. Oh. Yeah. So call him at 817-734-2756 because he'll give you the straight truth on it. You don't need a new roof or you do need a new roof. And you don't have to worry about are you getting scammed or not.
I know. There's so many that just go prowling through the neighborhoods hoping to get you.
Yeah. Well, he's going to do the right thing by you. Same thing with Melissa Harmon at the Texas Farm Bureau. She's swamped as well because they're getting all these claims coming in. And I've had several people that have been guests on the show that are Texas Farm Bureau clients, and they said they really, really do the right thing by them as opposed to finding loopholes to not pay. Texas Farm Bureau is highly ranked by, what is it, J.D. Powers and Associates?
So.
Something like that. They get highly ranked for customer service. So call her at 682-804-0534, and she'll check out your insurance policy and see if you can save some money. And it'll also related to them is Stop Restoration, Lisa Moore Smith. If you have damage, if you did have your roof damaged badly and had some water damage, they're the ones that help take care of it. You don't want to put that off because both the last 3 sponsors are BNI members, and so we get up and do like mini ads for ourselves during the meetings. And she gets up, oh, you got water damage, it's the end of the world. And so we are like, I want to run home and make sure my house is still standing. But they'll tell you that a lot of times their problem with the water damage is it's not big events like we had 2 weeks ago, but a leaky water heater.
That's exactly what I was about to say is leaks probably hidden in our home before this one. We had a long time leak behind our master shower and we noticed the little piece of wall in between the tile and the door frame was soft. And I was like, oh gosh, it was not a fun experience.
No. And it's expensive for if you don't have the right people, but they do a good job and they handle with the insurance. So they're good people. Also, do you have the Burleson Buzz logo, Taylor? They came, there it is. It came out last night. I've been kind of helping Cody O'Brien. You've already spoken with Cody.
I spoke to Cody a couple of times.
Yes, and he's trying to get this to be like a weekly newspaper kind of thing.
I've been reading the articles. I think his recent one was on the railroaders.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so if you want to check out what's going on locally, it comes out today, and it's out today. And sometimes he has a Friday edition kind of thing, and I know he did it like on the last council meeting, which is a nice segue into what we're talking about now. I see we have a new council member, yet not exactly a new one.
Right. We have somebody rejoining us.
Yes. Mr. Stanford resigned for what he said was professional reasons, and that we're going to accept that because there's no point in speculating anything else. But did you get a lot of suggestions, shall we say, to bring Ronnie back, like on email?
I did.
Yeah,
I did. On social media, email. Yes, citizens reached out, and we're very supportive of having Ronnie return for the remainder of that term.
You also, I saw the meeting, and you also discussed Todd Hulsey.
We did.
Who's with the planning and zoning, isn't he, right now?
Yes, right.
As far as his political future, so to speak, I'll let him speak for himself. But,
Yes.
We had good choices.
We really did.
And that's a nice thing to have. We had really good choices. But that choice of Ronnie, I didn't find it particularly controversial, but you watched the meeting, and the mayor was not pleased.
Sure.
All right. Did that carry over till afterwards? Or is it just like, okay, it's done, let's move on, we don't need this anymore?
That's kind of my attitude.
Yeah.
No, understandably, this last election was tough, but every election is tough. Tough elections go all the way back to Thomas Jefferson.
Oh, yes. You must have had a really good history teacher.
Oh, I had a great history teacher. History's my love language. So, they're heated, they're tough, families get involved, and it's just, they're high, a lot of high emotions go on during an election. So, and understandably, they're tough. Ronnie served this community for a long time, both in the school board, on city council, but owned a small business, coached a lot of people in this community, taught people in this community, and mentored. His list of, I'm sure, mentoring is even longer than those things. And so I have a lot of respect for that gentleman. He's been a great example and mentor to me, and I think he will serve us well being back on council. The most important thing, I really weighed, should we go out for an election? And ultimately, I just didn't believe that was the most responsible decision to make, given that it would take, although we had to make a decision within 120 days, being able to find election workers at the last minute. This is summer. Everyone is busy. We're constantly, this person's out of town, this person's out of town, or there's just so much going on, shuffling around of, visiting family and things like that. And so having to find election workers on a short notice, and getting all of that scheduled, there was a lot of pressure, and financially, I just did not think that was the best choice. It would have cost around $40,000, and ultimately for someone to sit in that seat for 6 months by the time all of that was said and done. And,
another ranker's election is not what we needed at this time.
Right.
And we're going to have one in the spring, I'm afraid.
It's really, turnout is tough at this in this time, getting individuals aware that there would even be an election going on, getting, a good turnout would be really tough in this short of time frame. And so I felt it would be best for the citizen, for whoever decides to run for that seat, because Ronnie has promised us that he doesn't have an interest in running. And he said that, at the end of this last election, that he was done. And so but we had some good conversations. I know I'm not the only person who spoke with him before throwing his name out there. And he said he would just be willing to get us through to the finale of this term. And then it's open season, and whoever wants to run. And, I know that there are a number of people who have expressed interest. And as you say, we're going to have to see ultimately what decisions those individuals all come to. But then the citizens can properly have their time to educate themselves on those that decide to run, and it can go from there, and they can properly decide, citizens of this community can properly decide who they'd like to sit in that seat for the next 3 years.
Yes, I think we'll get somebody good, because I'm sure several names came up in private conversations, and you get down to a choice between two gentlemen like Mr. Johnson and Mr. Hulsey. That's a good sign. Yeah. And so I'm personally, I like Ronnie. I'm glad you made the choice. That's who I would have picked. But if Mr. Hulsey been the choice, I'd have been just as glad about that.
Sure.
And it's kind of nice for a change to have a choice like that.
Respectable people that were,
it's like, okay,
have served us well, have a good reputation.
And I hope to have Mr. Hulsey on the show again for his planning and zoning situation.
I'm really thrilled that he's back on there. I was thrilled that he applied to serve on a board again, but we have 5 brand new to any committee or board serving on P&Z now. He served on P&Z before running for council. He served on council. He has a lot of perspective, a lot of experience in those areas. And so I think he'll really serve us well there, and we can benefit from his institutional knowledge and his experience, and set them up for success. And then should he decide to run, he's got some good footing underneath that.
Well,
commission.
one of your contentions in support of Mr. Johnson was you're in the middle of hiring a new city manager.
Yes, that too.
And that's a pretty important decision. It's one of the most important decisions y'all make. And you need somebody who's been through this before. I mean, Ronnie did it with the school board with hiring the superintendents and things of that nature.
Sat on committees to serve, to select the next superintendent. He sat and set, I believe, the last 2 city managers. And so he has some experience, and we've talked a couple of times about that and my thoughts and his thoughts. And so we really need stability in both of those areas, both P&Z, both and council. And we've got some big decisions coming up. And I think his...
Are y'all going to handle this in-house, or are you going to have an agency, like a headhunter agency, bring your candidates?
Last council meeting, we came to the conclusion that we would not like to go out with a search group or entity right now. And tomorrow's our meeting for this month, our second meeting for this month.
It's on a Wednesday?
So, yes, it was is today Tuesday?
Today's Tuesday.
Okay. So tomorrow's
Wednesday. Yes.
I'm sorry. Today is our meeting.
That's what I thought.
I'm getting so confused.
Yeah, I know.
We moved it from Monday.
Well, we had a holiday.
We had a national holiday.
Yeah.
And so today is our meeting. We're going to talk some more about, that selection and how we'd like to move forward. So the decision's not final. We've got some questions to ask, and
well,
I we go from there.
I could go either way in that question because, our last superintendent, or current one, Dr. Jimerson, was done brought to the school board through a search firm, and I think he's done a pretty good job. So, it does help.
It does.
And it helps go through the mounds of applications and no doubt you're going to be getting.
I'll say my colleagues, we had a great discussion about, how we go about that. What are the pros and cons of using a search group and not? And so it wasn't an easy decision that we came to. We really got to debate that, and I was proud of us all for putting it out there and weighing everyone's input.
Well, since you're not going to have the person that would be doing the hiring, which is a city manager, hiring for this position, who's going to make the final call? All 7 of y'all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So the city manager and the city secretary and the city attorney are the 3 positions that council hires that answer directly to council. So yes, those individuals have 7 bosses, and so we'll have to come to a consensus.
Well, it's just like a school board.
Right.
I know you can't answer this fully because of ongoing situations, but I had a couple of people ask about, has there been a lot of turnover under the last tenure of the previous
No, I worked for the city. It's been a while, but a lot of our directors had been there for a long time. And under the previous city manager, whether some directors decided to pursue other opportunities or retire or go different routes, we did lose a lot of tenured directors. I believe we only have 2 that were there prior to our previous city manager, Brian Langley. And so there was quite a bit of turnover and new leaders at the helm. I'm hopeful that the ones that are here now will be invested in our community and willing to stay. So we'll just have to see. I know that there's some unsettled, now that anyone below city manager they are hired and put in place by the city manager. So I'm sure that there's some unsettled feeling until we make the final decision on who our city manager is going to be. But I'm really hopeful. We have some phenomenal directors right now.
Well, that's good. The questions were asked in the idea that something is going on as opposed to normal attrition and change.
Right. But I'll say the culture in our community, or in our city, in operations side, has been different in the last few years. And I know because I used to work in that building. It's been a while, like I said, but I've known I've worn so many different hats in this community that I've worked alongside of a lot of our directors for a long time, whether it was Public Works Director, Parks and Recs directors, and so on, neighborhood services. And so a lot of these individuals I had working relationships with because of other hats that I wore, in addition to working in City Hall myself. And so the culture has been different. I think this current council really wants to bring that feeling of unity and collaboration back. And I think it can come. But that's building up and empowering them and it starts at the top. We have to set that example as council. While those directors don't answer directly to us, we are still setting an example of the type of leadership that we want to see in our community and the type of collaboration and the commitment to our city. And so I think if we can set that good example of how we all work together, then that will trickle down. Well, and it hasn't been like that in the last couple of years.
Well, there was that
what kind of
controversy.
example do we set when we're sitting up at the top and there's bickering and disagreements and one person's trying to tell, when a director's giving a presentation and one person's giving this type of, like, I'd like to see this, but another colleague may be saying, I'd like to see this. Well, there's confusion. They don't have direction. They don't know where we're going. And so we really need to set that example at the top of how we're willing to collaborate, what we truly want to see as a unified body so that everything, trickling down knows what we expect and knows what we're looking for. Because if we can't give that direction ourselves, they don't really know where to go from there.
Well, yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt, but one of the things I would point out, I remember the controversy with the library and Mr. Stanford is a lot of people think whether or not that was the right thing to do or not, they think that's what city council members do, is they discuss things with city employees, but the truth is you only really talk to one, right?
We can talk to any of them,
but you can only
ask
direct
for clarification, but we can only direct, and by city charter, which was what I brought forward during those discussions with Mr. Stanford. Our city charter is very specific. It says we direct the city manager, and he manages all of the directors from beneath that role, and so below that role. And so that's something we all have to be cautious of. We can have relationships and ask for clarification, and we can visit and build up all the directors as we should. Every time I, visit the animal shelter, if I'm visiting a park or I'm doing something with any of our directors, I want to build them up, and I'm welcome to give my opinion. But as far as direction, that has to come through the city manager. And so when I have an issue, like, hey, I've heard from citizens that this pothole needs to be fixed. It's not my place to call the public works director and be like, you need to go fix this pothole right now. I send, things that are submitted to me or I hear about in the community, I send those to the city manager, and then he delegates from there how he, and we all have to, it's something might be pressing to me, in the big, they have to weigh, the city manager has to look at the bigger picture and say, okay, yes, that pothole is important, but right now it's about number 9 in the queue because of XYZ. They see those things. I don't necessarily day to day.
Well, I guess one way I'd phrase this, let's say you get calls about a pothole or whatever else. And some people think you just call up the director of the streets and say, go take care of this, like you just described. But can you call them up and say, hey, I'm hearing about this. Can you look into it and all this?
I call the city manager for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is intimidating a little bit for an employee to get somebody from a director. Now, when I was working in the school, for better or for worse, I wasn't intimidated by the school board. But still, a lot of my peers, if they ever had any interactions with school board members and they said, well, we hear about this, we hear about that, it gets
you're kind of put on the spot.
Yeah. You get your blood running a little bit because you're thinking, am I being directed indirectly or not? So you have to be, I guess, very tactful and purposeful in how you phrase things and all that. But
I mean, that's it goes back to the relationship that we have with the city manager, and I hear about things and I just send it his way, and he's gonna. The nice thing is they can thoroughly vet through something. If I were to put a director or any other staff member on the spot, it's just like it kind of needs that filter system. It helps, make sure, are we dotting all of our I's, crossing all our T's? Is this, number 9 in the queue, or does it need to be bumped up to number 1 in the queue? And that kind of gives it a little bit of a vetting process. And it takes that pressure off and allows them to appropriately line up the work that they need to do. They've got a lot cooking at all times. And so if I take it to the city manager, he's able to delegate how he sees fit. And also, I may not know the exact employee that issues should get to,
Right.
you know? And so I don't want to put something on somebody else's plate that it doesn't belong.
Well, I would imagine just from our conversations, probably the most interactions you have is with the parks people, because that's always been a real big thing with you. And I had Jen Basham on about 3 weeks ago.
I know, it was a great conversation.
And boy, they got stuff going on, don't they?
Don't they?
You know, I wonder if other communities have this a level of activity and opportunity. I know that you and your children take part in a lot of those
We
things.
do.
Tell us about Juneteenth last night. I was moving furniture, but I really, really liked. Bill Janis. Am I surprised Bill Janis jumped into this? But okay, let's see. Yeah, well, Bill, you're welcome to your opinion, sir. His opinion is that there's more to it, but I'm not going to address that, and I don't know. I'll speak for Victoria. She can't address it.
Well, you know, I'll just say some of those directors left for other opportunities. Some directors, you know, I hated to lose. Or, you'd hate to, you know. But that's my opinion, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I knew some of these directors for a long time, and I had great working relations with them myself too. And so my hope is that those that want to be here, that want to serve this community, that are bringing new ideas and innovation, or are thinking for the whole of the community is really what my goal would be in securing and keeping any directors. But yeah, I agree that there's definitely some that I hated to lose. It was sad, but
yeah. Well, you know, and I thank you, Bill, for your opinion, but I really, Victoria and I really can't address that directly. I don't have the knowledge, and she's also, as many people know, there's also a suit against the city that she surely can't comment on. So there you are. But anyway, back to Juneteenth. I'm really glad we did this, and I've been saying that for a while. I did my show yesterday on Juneteenth, and it's a very profoundly moving holiday or event, you know, what you want to call it. You know, because it's one of the most organic of holidays in the sense that it was people took it upon themselves to celebrate that day, as opposed to, you know, creating a federal holiday and, you know, from above at the federal or state level. And I was surprised Texas was the first state to even acknowledge Juneteenth, even though it did start here in Galveston. I thought, you know, the first acknowledgement was 1938. I thought, that is not known for its racial equality views in our history, but there you are. But I'm glad to see our community embrace that kind of diversity. It
was our first annual, so just the beginning. I think the turnout was phenomenal for our first year, especially given that we changed the date. But I was very happy with the date change. I was out of town this weekend, dance nationals for my daughter, but and similar how we in this community celebrate July 4th on July 4th. I like that we celebrated it on June 19th, which is the intention of that recognition. And so that date is intentional for the recognition. And so it was just so, there was so much positive energy and such a diverse group who came out. There was delicious food, art. The kids got to create art, you know, paint and take art. And there was a phenomenal band. Man, did they have some talent. The guitarist had some solo parts that were just phenomenal, blew me away. The singing was beautiful. It was all, you know, songs that we know. I was up and dancing and hooting and hollering.
And sweating, no doubt.
And sweating. Yes. I think all of our shirts were glued to us by the time we left. But it was such a feel-good, like, so let's celebrate our history and how we got here and celebrate diversity and what makes us different. We're this big melting pot, but together we make this beautiful mosaic picture. We're all different and different backgrounds and different lived experiences. And that's what makes us a cool community. And we should celebrate those things. And what better to celebrate than food and music?
And I would bet there was zero politics or pontificating or preaching or whatever you want to call it. It was strictly a celebration.
It was strictly a celebration. I read a proclamation that I think was very well prepared. And it was just fun. Lots of great energy. I met lots of new friends, and Councilmember Phil Anderson was out there as well. And it was his. He had a bowl of the shrimp and grits, and then I had to go get shrimp and grits, and it was just phenomenal food, just everyone was just upbeat.
When I was doing the research for yesterday's show, there are certain traditional foods, at least in the past. Red velvet cake is supposed to be, it's supposed to be part, which I love red velvet cake, but
So
it's
does
like,
Audrey.
that's kind of like the traditional food similar to, because the color red is a symbol of freedom for that they took as a symbol.
Sure.
And other things like that, and other types of foods, like you mentioned, like the shrimp and grits and such. And I thought, wow, it's like traditional foods like you have at Cinco de Mayo or St. Patrick's Day, where the traditional food is usually beer, but green beer or whatever. I'm glad that our community doesn't neglect these kind of things, because we're a lot different community than when I moved here.
Yeah, we're growing, we're expanding. There's lots of diversity coming into our community, and honestly has been here. But it's nice to celebrate it, and it's enjoyable. It's fun to get to experience different things. And like I said, the turnout was awesome. Just the energy of the whole event, and I was fortunate to be on stage with this phenomenal couple that has a small business, and their energy, and it's fun. It was pure fun, pure enjoyment, and I loved it.
And we're going to have something very soon with the July 4th.
Right.
Not just the party at the pavilion, but there's the Lions Club parade, isn't there?
There's a huge parade. July 4th parade is big.
Hope the weather's a little cooler, but I doubt it.
I doubt it.
But parades are big in this town. I found that out student council days.
Small hometown feel, right? Who doesn't love a fun parade? Candies throwing and glow sticks and treats. And
I could tell you who doesn't love a parade is the streets department, but that's another story. Well, when I started doing the parade for student council, it was pretty traditional, and boy, some people took it pretty seriously.
Yes.
But I think
they go all out. They decorate their floats. Lions Club does a phenomenal job with our parade. They're so organized, and they can whip out. There's tons of floats, and they line them up, and they get them rolling.
Are they still leaving from the old Kerr parking lot?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
the problem that we started to encounter towards the end of my tenure at student council was the return route. Often some people discarded stuff, and it got to people's yards, and so
that's a bummer.
So then we started to pay for the cleanup and all this other stuff. But and then we went to 2 high schools. I don't know if they still have a parade, do they?
I know
for high schools?
BHS has a homecoming parade. I think CHS tried this last year, but the problem is the route for CHS, because it sits on East Renfro. It's not safe.
Well, we went last 2 or 3 years. We went to like a carnival kind of thing, and as opposed to an actual parade, and that got some people kind of stirred. And I said, "You're talking to the wrong guy." I mean, the city.
You can't make things happen, Mr. Allard.
At that time, I think it was Ken. I said, "Hey, bud." He's like, "What do you want me to do about it?" I thought you were the czar of Burleson, Ken. But that's what they tell me. But
I think the route is the stickiest part of figuring out, what that should look like. But BHS's goes through the neighborhoods that are behind that school. So maybe Centennials comes through Oak Valley. I don't know. I think we can get creative. I think we could figure out something. But the problem is that East Renfro is a sticky spot. But maybe they stage at Bransom Elementary and go from there. I don't know. I would love to be a part of that. And if I can help Centennial in that way, I would love to. Because that's fun. We love to cheer on. My kids are so excited to, I think, the Spartan, we live on the east side, and so my kids will most likely feed her into Centennial, and so they like doing the Meet the Spartans night that kind of stuff, and seeing the big kids, wearing their football jerseys, and Audrey goes crazy for the cheerleaders in their cheerleading costumes, and so there's lots of fun things to do in this community, and that's what builds us up. And I said this in my remarks yesterday at Juneteenth of coming together and cheering each other on, neighbors knowing each other, and these. I think for the last couple of weeks, every time we're in Old Town eating, there is a softball team or a baseball team. So all these select sports raising funds to go to their nationals, to go to different competitions. And so supporting them and coming out, and that's what makes it fun, getting to know our neighbors. That's what keeps us that small town feel. Yeah,
and we're about to get 2 restaurants at Old Town Online. And then
I saw the sign for Razzoos today that said they were hiring.
Yeah. And then that steakhouse, that train themed
Station 330.
Yeah, that's coming along. I don't know when they're going to open it because they're still in the construction phase. But I, from what I've been told, Hyman and Razzoos will be open
by the end of summer.
Yeah. Yeah, by Labor Day.
Yeah.
And Boy, that'd be great. It's just going to add a lot because you're going to have the ability to not only participate in stuff downtown, but there's 2 more high quality restaurants there, and so I'm really, this kind of growth though does bring certain, I wouldn't say problems, but situations.
Things we have to work around.
Financially as well. And kind of segueing here kind of elegantly is the state of Texas just finished their session. And it seems to me, just from what I've observed, they're making it harder and harder on cities like us to be able to expand our revenues to meet these growing needs. Yep. Is that what you're getting from, whoever advises y'all, the city attorney or whomever else?
We have a legislative consultant firm that helps us. I mean, there's so many bills that get introduced. There's no way individuals that aren't down there can keep a pulse on it all. And every legislative session, they, I think the crux of it is they want to address property taxes, but knowing how, everyone's got a different opinion of how that should be addressed, and who it should impact, how it should impact. And so they blame it on us. They blame it on the city, but
and
we
the
have
school boards
and the school districts.
Yeah.
When every session they take away how you all a bit of your income as well. And so, we have services that we absolutely have to provide. We want a safe community. So that's police and fire. I mean, the majority of our budget, over 85% of our budget is public safety. And so, there's a lot of services.
How much again? I'm sorry?
Over 85%
really?
of our budget.
Wow. I didn't know it was quite that high. Well, here's the thing is that yesterday, Mr. Abbott, Governor Abbott, vetoed 76 bills, including some of the competing plans for not only school funding, but city funding as well.
Right.
A lot of people don't understand this. How is he vetoing bills when they're not in session? The state of Texas Constitution says if the governor gets a bill on his desk within the last 10 days, he can just let it sit there until the session's over, and then he's given an extra 20 days. It's like, overtime. And almost always about on the 18th or 19th of June, after a session, they'll have a big press conference and say, here are the bills I vetoed and here's the ones I've signed. And he vetoed a bunch that were related to funding of schools and funding of cities and property taxes and all this other stuff. From what I've seen, it just seems like despite whatever Republican mantra has always been about local control, they don't seem to be practicing that.
No.
And I saw that in the schools starting around early 2000s, where they began to impede, encroach, whatever you want to call it, on how schools finance themselves and curriculum issues and things of that nature. And now they've really got a mess on school funding because they didn't pass a bill because they're supposed to give funding to the schools and teacher raise and all this other stuff, but the Senate didn't pass it because it did not include vouchers or educational savings accounts. And so that's supposed to be what they're dealing with in a special session, and they're not dealing with it right now. But that's schools, but that happens with y'all too. I know y'all have made some progress, let's say, on trying to keep the rates from getting higher, and you actually lower a little bit.
We did. The last 4 years, we have lowered the tax rate. I mean, it's the lowest. And there's a chart that was in last meeting's slides, and we've significantly, we don't take what we can't spend. And that is rightfully so. We're trying to be conservative, but we definitely have services that we want and have to provide. We want a safe community. We want streets that aren't pothole ridden to drive on. And actually, we have a really cool, we just did a contract, and I saw yesterday the city posted on our Facebook that there's a vehicle driving all the streets in our community to see, they're going to test, we haven't invested enough in keeping up what we already have. And so before we go building more, we need to make sure what we have in our city is able to be maintained, and we're investing in it properly as needed along the way before they completely fall apart and need reconstruction. And that's kind of how we've done things in the past, of just like, well, we let it get to complete disrepair and then let's rebuild it. Well, what if we invest a little bit, put some in the coffer as it's needed along the way so that it doesn't completely fall apart?
Well, and probably part of your job is you have to educate the public where some of the money's coming from, because they all think it's coming directly from their property taxes. But
right.
we were talking earlier prior to the show, the cemetery is funded independently.
Right. The cemetery is funded by gas well funds.
All right. So it's not
and
coming out of
those
the pocket,
funds
so to speak.
can only be spent on our cemetery. And so those can't be shuffled anywhere else. And so it has a healthy fund balance, and we were able to make some really neat improvements very recently. I wanted to make a plug about that because I thought it was pretty impressive.
Okay.
We added 720 urn or columbarium spaces. So whenever if you decide to get cremated, those have 720 spaces for that. We have 576 flat marker spaces, 300 cremation spaces, 44 family spaces, and 190 infant spaces. So we made a really healthy expansion there. So we should be able to accommodate quite a bit of growth for a while. It's really nice and pretty if you haven't been out to our cemetery recently.
Well, that's kind of an odd growth to be looking at, I suppose. We have all these extra spaces to bury y'all in, but still. But I was also talking to Jen Basham a couple of weeks ago when she was on the show, and the parks are funded through a special account as well. Not
4B. So a half a cent on the sales tax rate goes into that. So for every burrito that you buy in town, every time you go to Target or Hobby Lobby, all of the half a
You
cent.
covered both ends. I got that. I thought you did there.
I shop at both a lot.
Okay.
So, you're contributing to that half a cent sales tax that then gets reinvested into park improvements, not the maintenance part, but the improvements. So when we completely redo a park playground or we create a new park.
What I like in particular about your park system here is that you have maybe a half an acre of unused space. It would just be weeds otherwise. And they put a little micro park in it. Like there's one off of, oh gosh, I keep forgetting the name of the street, but it's just Cindy Park. That's what it is. And just a small one that's going up near Mambo's and all that parking area. And I just think that's great because you're utilizing space that would otherwise just be an eyesore.
Well, so developers, like you mentioned Cindy. So when a development is coming in, there has to be a certain, since you mentioned Clark Park, that kind of predates the business development is much more recent than when that was dedicated to the city. But there's a certain amount for every, looking at a housing development, there's a certain amount of space that has to be dedicated back to the city as parkland. The issue that we've had is it's typically the land that they can't build on. It's floodplain or it's not enough space. And so here you go. You can have this. We're going to throw you a bone and you can put a park there, or it can be a green space, but it technically checks that box of giving back a certain portion for park space to the city. And so we, in the last couple of years, have looked at that. We want it to be usable space. We don't want it to be space that just gets flooded. We want space where we can put a decent sized playground or some type of, fitness area, or is it green space that they can practice their soccer games on and play other things on, or is it where we have a tetherball? Even we want to utilize the space that we're given to the best of our ability. And some of our parks have been undersized. We increased the play space at Claudia's Playground. There's a lot of homes that playground services. And so that's been a great, fun, pretty, it had sat there for something like 20 years without being updated. And so it was long overdue.
Sherry has a comment. They can pay or dedicate land.
Yes, that's true. So either they can pay us and say, instead of giving you park space, we'll give you the equal amount in dollars. But
yeah. Well, I was kind of getting around, we kind of got off, I got on your topic, Parks and Rec, and zoom, you take off. But I was going to talk about the city still, but in the state.
It's not my only topic. I do get pretty passionate about economic development too.
Okay. Well, the state, what's bothering me about the state is that not all cities are in the same situation financially.
Right.
And we're in the constrictions, it seems like every session the state of Texas has reins us in a little bit more and more.
They try, sure.
Well, I remember a few years ago, they outlawed cities' ability to ban fracking within their city limits because Denton did that. Now, so even if we wanted to do it in Burleson, which I doubt very seriously we'd want to, we're not Denton, but still these local choices. And another choice is that's floating through the legislative session and is a big current deal in Dallas is short-term rentals. Mm-hmm. Now, they're having a big controversy about that. Y'all addressed this already, have you not?
Yes. To date, we wanted to be ahead of anything that might come up. We don't know of very many short-term rentals in our community, but we created a registration process. So we do know where those short-term rentals are, and they have so many days to get registered, and it's not hard to find them. You can look on these websites, VRBO and HomeAway and things, to find these homes that you can rent, and they serve a good purpose. In that council meeting, I talked about how my family utilizes them when we go on vacation. If it's an option, I'd much rather have a full kitchen where I can cook, a meal or two for my kids, and have separate bedrooms and just a quiet space. Because when we stay in a hotel room with two rambunctious kiddos that jump from bed to bed like
been there,
the monkeys that they are.
Yeah.
And Dan talked about how he has a kiddo with dietary needs. It's just sometimes easier and more comforting to stay in someone's home that has pots and pans and blankets and pillows a lot more than you can get in just a hotel room. And so I think that there's a place for them both, but we want to know where they are, and we want to make sure that, most importantly, that there's a local contact for them. Sometimes they're owned by either a company that has houses here in Colorado and New Mexico and all of these spaces. And so there isn't necessarily someone locally that can respond if an issue arises. If there's a pipe leak, if there's something that happens while someone is staying in that home, we need a local contact. And so that we are asking for in that registration process. And so we just want to make sure we have a pulse on it so that we are hopefully mitigating any issues that might arise from it.
Well, the big issue is often these short-term rentals are used for like party purposes, and
maybe that's it. Yeah. Are they being loud? Are they creating disruptions?
Right.
Because they're in neighborhoods where people are living, where there's children riding on their bikes, and so we want our community to be safe first and foremost, and a place that people enjoy living. And if there's a lot of turnover in a home, and there's no one to rectify, immediate issues like, hey, they're having a noise issue or whatever it may be. Their trash is building up. It's not getting put out to the curb, or they're leaving trash out for multiple days. There's someone staying in that home for a temporary amount of time may not know all of these little nuances. And so it's important that we have a local contact. But, I will say that they serve a role just like a hotel does, just like, I know of a lot of military families that utilize these short-term rentals, and we're not far from the Joint Air Force Base. Is that what it's called now?
Yeah,
I still want to call it Carswell.
Yeah, right.
So there's a need for it, and but we also just need to make sure we know what it is and where it exists so that we can be on top of it if issues arise.
I never used Airbnb, so maybe, of course, I never leave anywhere. I'm too dedicated to my community or some crap like that. Anyway, but you have a meeting tonight. Anything on the agenda?
Yeah.
I'm just reminding you. So no, I'm just telling you.
I keep thinking it's tomorrow because
anything on the agenda that's
summertime, I'm all over the place with kids. I have to set all of these reminders. Okay, pick up Audrey from camp. Oliver goes to this camp, and this one goes from 1 to 4, and, they're all over the place. But tonight we have several things on our workshop part of our agenda. We're going to talk about council committees. I'm appreciative of Councilmember Larry Scott for visiting, what are these council committees and what are they doing, or are they doing anything, and can we repurpose them to make sure they're being utilized? Because there's a lot of big policy decisions that would be nice to kind of be vetted from, and we can't have more than 3 council members sit on each of these committees because we don't want to have a quorum and then therefore making decisions for the entire council before it comes to the entire council. But sometimes it's nice to just kind of vet things through with 1 or 2 of your colleagues to say, what are your thoughts on this financial policy? Let's talk it through. And then when it comes to full council, those of us that have really looked it over and discussed it can give some suggestions. And that's all it is a suggestion to the whole council. But there's there's a public safety, which includes law enforcement, fire, and dispatch, and a multitude of other things. So Mr. Scott has kind of prepared a presentation for us to review these committees and how we can really put them back to work.
He's already demonstrated his leadership on that council.
He has.
I watched the last meeting, and you can tell he's
passionate, he's
prepared.
Informed, he's prepared. He really is working hard on things. So I'm appreciative of that. And one of the committees that we're also going to talk about is a committee that myself and Ms. Payne had brought forward to the council, but we just really couldn't figure out how to get it rolling. But it's called the Better Together Committee. And it's about that, celebrating diversity and finding opportunities through art and food and speakers and music. And there's a multitude of ways that we can celebrate more things like we did yesterday. And so that committee is going to be discussed this evening as well.
Be interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you got lots going on.
We have several things going
Just
on.
as a mom, you have lots going on. I see your Facebook page, and there's your kids, and they're running around. I bet they get their sleep at night.
I know.
Busy.
Oliver had speech therapy this morning, and he was not wanting to wake up for it. He went back to sleep on me 4 times. He said, "Mom."
No, he's 5 or 6.
He's 5. He turned 6 in August.
Okay, and
another summer activity. Like I didn't have enough, but
and to see the dancing pictures of your daughter.
yes, she loves dance. So we just got back from nationals. She just amazes me. I'm so proud of the dedication that she puts into that and hard work. It takes a lot of practices, but I'm loving being a dance mom, and we'll find Oliver's niche. I don't know what it is. We tried baseball, and he would drag his bat. And
Well, he's only 5. Wait till give him. Of course, there's basketball. He's just.
I don't know. He's a shorty. I don't know.
Well, they all are at that age, aren't they? I mean, but I get
maybe soccer. He loves to swim, so we do take lessons. I have the opinion that my kids can never be too strong swimmers. So.
Well, soccer is probably the best entry sport for his age.
Right.
That's for our kids. It
He
was.
just doesn't want to run. He's like, he kicks his feet like he's going to take off really fast, and then he slow-mos it just to get under our skin. We're like, run, Oliver. And he just looks back and waves.
Yeah. It's like my daughter. She's so funny because she'd kick a goal in soccer and it scores. And she'd go, that's nice. Hair pulling the carry. Okay, sure. I scored.
Sure, I got it.
But
did my thing.
Yeah, but we did the youth sports with our children, and
I just want to keep them active. I don't want them sitting in front of a tablet all day long. Just do something, whatever that is. But I really think he's gonna be the kid that gets into robotics, and it's hard at this age, like you said, because so many things aren't available yet to him. But I'm giving it time, and we spend a lot of time at the library. We do all the free library activities. So we were out at the plaza yesterday morning playing in bubbles galore.
I saw that too.
And then I think tomorrow the library is going to have a musician, and it's going to be in the council chamber. So that's a little different, but at least we have AC. And he plays all kinds of music and brings instruments to show the kids. And so... there's lots of things going on in our community. I strongly encourage people to take advantage. Our Parks and Recs crews putting on cool things. We've had Touch a Truck last week where kids got to experience, some of the big public works trucks and the fire truck and the police cars.
Oh, yeah.
Climb through it all and push all the buttons. And
Okay. Well, I appreciate what you do for the city.
I love it.
We're about done here, so you want to close this out?
Sure, I'd be honored to. I always enjoy my time with you, so thank you so much.
Sure.
And so we have council tonight at 4. We've bumped up our start time now. We'll regularly start that first Monday and third Monday of the month, but it's today this month at 4 o'clock. And so tune in to that, ask questions, submit emails. There's a Connect with Council button that emails us all. Any issues that you have along the way, let us serve you, because that's what we're here for. And I thoroughly enjoy the opportunity.
Well, okay. I just got a text that anyway. Well, okay. No. It's just where when you're selling a house, there's all sorts of things coming
joy.
up. So anyway.
Call Shandy.
Yeah. Well, that's what we'll do. Jeff B says thank you for Victoria.
My pleasure.
We'll figure out a time. We'll probably have you in late July again.
Yep, I'll be back.
I'll be back. You'll be back going on vacation, such
In August.
Okay.
July's a little bit slower. We're going to do all the fun community activities. 4th of July parade. I'll be out there walking it with my daughter. So wave.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Allard. I appreciate
it.
you.
I got to get this. I hate selling a house. Thank you, Shandy, for taking care of the hard stuff for me. All righty. Thank you. We'll talk to y'all later.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.